Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And if you are a YouTube user, make sure you enable notifications so they let you know every time a new episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast goes up. And while you're at it, if you are sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video games, stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. They even have an app now, so you can put it right into your smartphone or your iOS device. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like Mike and Lansdale, then check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We have loyalty rewards. $15 a month contributors can co-host an episode of Going Live with me, and our $7.50 a month contributors get entered into a drawing to potentially also host an episode of one of our live shows. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. We'll be taking your questions, your comments, anything you want to talk about through the live streaming service. Wherever you're hearing this podcast right now, click the chat function and get involved in the show. Make sure you let us know who you are so we can give you credit for anything you bring to the table. We always like to give recognition to our listeners. If you have questions that come up during the show, you don't want to call in, a little bit shy, it's all good. Call into the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160. It is a talk-to-text service. You talk, it texts us your words, and we can address your questions in an upcoming episode. Don't forget, if you are new to the Pro Wrestling Podcast, check out our homepage at frowrestling.com. That's F-R-O wrestling.com, where you could preview all the topics coming to the show. It's a great way for you to come up with questions, things you may just not have thought of while we were on the air, and we can get to your questions, comments, etc. after this show in a future episode. So, once again, make sure you give us your name so we can give you a shout out for whatever your questions are. Tonight's show loaded, top to bottom, lots of things to talk about. A lot of it focused on WrestleMania, but not everything. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the world of professional wrestling right now in almost every company. So we'll go from spot to spot. We'll talk about all the issues, all the topics of discussion, starting off with our lead story, The Undertaker. It has been made official. The Undertaker is booked for WWE's return to Saudi Arabia. So, I know those shows bring in tons of money courtesy of the Saudi Arabian government making this huge deal with WWE. And I understand that maybe it's The Undertaker coming back for a payday. But it's really hard for you to convince me that The Undertaker is going to come back for the Saudi Arabia show and not appear at WrestleMania. That doesn't make 1% sense to me. Does he have a role at WrestleMania? Well, apparently, depending on who you listen to, Sportskeeda this week talking about he has a desire to come back and face Finn Balor at WrestleMania. Finn Balor has expressed his interest in facing the Dead Man at WrestleMania. Can you imagine a match with the two? You have the Dead Man and the Demon. It's a built-in storyline with no build. You don't need any build. You don't even need to tell us that The Undertaker's going to be there. You could easily have him show up at the show, walk to the ring, incredible entrance, and be in the ring looking for a challenger, and cue the Demon's music, and have him come out doing his whole Demon shtick. It would be awesome. I would love to see it. You could do it the other way around. Finn Balor could come out and do his Demon character, and call on, the God of the Underworld or something, and bring out The Undertaker, and people would love to see it. However, it is not just Finn Balor that is on the docket who would love to wrestle The Undertaker. Sting in the news this week saying that he has a desire for one last match. There's exactly one man that he would come out of retirement at 60 years old. He would come out to face The Undertaker. That is the match he wants. And we know this has been a dream match of all of ours for years and years and years. And just for the record, the match has actually taken place. If you go back into the annals of NWA, right towards the tail end where WCW took over, The Undertaker was Mean Mark Callis in NWA and Sting was Sting, and they did actually get in a ring back then. But since they've both become icons in the industry, no crosstalk, no matches, not even a tag team match, and we would love to see the Crow Sting versus the Dead Man at WrestleMania. It would be the absolute best place to have it. But we're getting to the point, and I said this on last week's show when it was Sting's birthday, that at some point He's going to get too old, and it's not going to be feasible. It's not going to be possible. I know Sting stays in amazing shape. I know The Undertaker looks like he's in some of the best shape of his entire career. But at some point, we either need to get it done or move on. And at this point, I'm almost at the move on stage. I'm close. Too many times have we gotten to a situation where it seems like it just makes too much sense, and it doesn't happen, and it's thoroughly frustrating. Another thing we can expect to see at WrestleMania, WWE is bringing in Hulk Hogan for the festivities, and they are in negotiations to also bring in Stone Cold Steve Austin for Mania. Now, I know we've seen the years in the past where Hogan and Stone Cold come in, they show up, they do some little speaking segment or something like that, but let's be honest. We've seen that multiple times at this point. Hogan, I know he was recently stated or quoted as saying that he can't do it in the ring. He feels 20, but his bodies just won't give it to him to be in a match anymore. Stone Cold has said he doesn't want to come back for a match because he would never want to come back and not be Stone Cold from like 2001. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see either one of them getting overly physical. Now, the last time Stone Cold was at WrestleMania, if you remember, was when Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley joined him to knock the snot out of the League of Nations, and that's what ended up leading to him tearing a rotator cuff and everything else. But anytime the two of these guys show up at a Mania, it is instant sizzle. And let's face it, the WrestleMania card is stacked to begin with. If you haven't checked out my periodicals or my editorial pieces at Info's Corner, my blog, go to FroWrestling.com, check it out, because I have an article there talking about how this year they've got a real problem with WrestleMania booking who's going to be in the main event. Look, I know we've been talking for a year. A year ago, it was supposed to be Charlotte and Ronda Rousey main event WrestleMania 35. And then your fans had to go mess everything up and fall in love with Becky Lynch. I'm not complaining. She's the hottest thing in wrestling in the female industry right now, and she deserves to be in the main event of WrestleMania. But the way they've handled it has cooled off that feud in a lot of ways, and the organic nature that Kofi Kingston has cultivated with you fans has made it so Kofi Kingston kind of has legitimately earned the right to be the main event. At the same time, Seth Rollins dethroning and slaying the Beast could easily be the end of the show, especially if there's a one last time we get to see the Shield in the ring to celebrate at the end. So that's a possibility. You have Mark Henry earlier this week saying that AJ Styles and Randy Orton should be the main event of the show. And then you still got the women, the triple threat for the Universal Championship, and a host of other matches. Kurt Angle's farewell match. If they change it, that's the other thing. WWE this week is talking about reconsidering Kurt Angle's final match. Maybe the Baron Corbin thing doesn't work. Maybe heading into WrestleMania, you do an angle where Corbin comes out trash-talking Kurt Angle, have him get attacked from behind, putting him out of the match, and replaced by somebody else. Dear Lord, let it be someone like Samoa Joe, who's got a match now with Rey Mysterio, so I guess he's out. John Cena, which a lot of people have asked for, or a host of other people who we would love to see him in the ring with, not Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin, I will be honest with you, I think is a solid performer, and I think he is working his tail off to get over with the fans. It just hasn't happened yet. Putting him in that leadership role on Raw for 6 months was a horrible idea because you killed any momentum he had. Let's be honest. When he was the lone wolf character and he was coming out with the long hair and he looked a certain way, he looked menacing. You know, even the attire down to the ring tights looked different. It was almost Braun Strowman-esque, and he was doing it well. And then they change everything after his Money in the Bank win and everything, and he loses that, and they kind of bury him for a while. This is what they gave him. Constable Corbin, where he looks like he looks like a big Jack Gallagher. Except he's 6 foot whatever and running around thicker. But otherwise, it was a horrible character change. That's what you want to put in the ring with Kurt Angle for his final match. Kurt Angle with the right opponent could be the main event for WrestleMania. Wouldn't mind seeing some of the matches with Samoa Joe's, the AJ Styles, the Finn Balor, something of substance. Finn Balor and Kurt Angle would be a fantastic match. Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship. What better than to have a United States Olympic gold medalist have his final match with the United States champion for the United States Championship, have him win the title, retire with the belt, and then have a tournament later to fulfill the vacancy. I would be all in on that. Now, this Tuesday night, we're going to get a dream match. Kurt Angle will be taking on AJ Styles on SmackDown, a match that can easily headline a pay-per-view, and they're going to give it to us for free on Tuesday night. I cannot wait to see the match. I think it's going to be Kurt's going to go out of his way to deliver a great match with AJ Styles, someone who he has immense respect for, someone he loves working with in the ring, had many matches in TNA with, and I think this is it's a recipe for success. I'm hoping and praying WWE doesn't mess this up by having a Daniel Bryan run in or something stupid like their Baron Corbin showing up and getting involved. Like, dear Lord, please just let Kurt Angle have an amazing match with AJ Styles at SmackDown. We all deserve that, since you're going to give us garbage at Mania unless they change their mind. Now, one of the schmoz endings at Mania that may take place is much more interesting, and that's in a Universal Championship match where this week Daniel Cormier, the UFC heavyweight champion, who is very adamant he wants a fight with Brock Lesnar, came out and said he may have to show up at WrestleMania and cost Brock the WWE Universal Championship just so he can get him to UFC to fight him for the heavyweight championship. I don't know what's going through Daniel Cormier's head. I don't want to step in the ring with anybody that looks like Brock Lesnar unless you pay me good money. He wants to fight this guy simply for the fact of beating him, and Brock is a monster, especially when he jacks it up for UFC. So, very cool. I think at some point we're going to get to see that fight, but we also have been seeing that there's a lot of promotion now from Fox for SmackDown, including Brock Lesnar. So there's word on the street is it may be a shift. Brock Lesnar going to SmackDown. We talked about this in a previous episode. Pay him the extra money, get him to SmackDown, get him on there a little more regularly, maybe once or twice a month, just so he stays current, he stays in a program at all times. Just don't put a championship on the guy. It demeans a championship to put it on a guy who's never on your television program. Fox wants action. They want mainstream stars. One person they really might want to be on a SmackDown roster is Rob Gronkowski, retiring today, tight end for the New England Patriots, 9 years in the NFL, arguably one of the, if not the greatest tight end in the history of football, played with Tom Brady his entire career. He retired today. Good friends with Mojo Rawley. What a lot of people may not know is that there's other history there. His father went to college with Mike Rotundo, IRS, the father of Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas. He's got a lot of links to the professional wrestling world. There was a little flirtation with it when he was at WrestleMania and helped Mojo Rawley win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and things of that nature. So it would not surprise me to see him take a little sidestep and go into the WWE world. I don't know if it's something I could see him doing as a career, only because he does have some offers from the Hollywood world. He's got some things going on with different sports networks that could happen. So he's got a lot of options right now. So we'll have to watch what happens with Gronk over the next few weeks. But congratulations to Gronkowski on an incredible career. I live in the Philadelphia marketplace. A lot of Philadelphia fans will never be in support of Gronkowski because he played for the Patriots, and the Patriots beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl a few years back. But the Eagles got their revenge. They won the Super Bowl last year. That's over. Congratulations to a great player in Rob Gronkowski, and hopefully we'll see him in a WWE ring sometime in the near future. Gonna get off track from the WWE for just a moment and go with New Japan Pro Wrestling. They have been housing their tournament called the New Japan Cup for the last several weeks, and now we had the finals come together. It was Sonata versus Kazuchika Okada, the former IWGP Heavyweight Champion, the man who lost the championship only about 6-8 months ago, and now Okada defeats Sonata and will go into the G1 Supercard to take on Jay White for the IWGP Championship. A lot of people expect that Okada may actually win the championship back at this show, because who else are you going to put against Jay White? He's defeated pretty much everybody already, and he's only been main eventing for a few months. He already took out Tanahashi. He's taken on everybody they've thrown in front of him so far, and he does it convincingly. He's the new leader of the Bullet Club. You know, and when you've got all the Bullet Club members behind you, it's difficult. They protect the championship. It's like old school horseman mentality, and Okada might be the one guy who could unseat Jay White and take that championship. Should make the G1 Supercard show incredible. If it wasn't already, I mean, you've already got a triple threat for the Ring of Honor Championship. You've got IWGP Tag Team Champions versus Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, and a host of other matches taking place on that show. So that card is shaping up to be absolutely amazing, and I hope the New York fans pay the appreciation that these two companies deserve for putting something together that is not WWE, but that is certainly some of the best wrestling in the history of the business. New Japan always delivers quality wrestling. Ring of Honor always delivers quality wrestling. And now we're going to get to see those two companies putting together a killer show all together in Madison Square Garden. Another company doing things outside the WWE umbrella, former Impact Knockouts champion Allie. She was a big star with Impact Wrestling, won their championship. Now she has signed with All Elite Wrestling, and AEW is just stockpiling talent in the female division at this point. They've got 6 or 8 female talents that easily, and I'm not trying to offend any WWE fans here, but the talent that is on the AEW female roster is every bit as talented as the WWE women's division right now. Now, I know some people are huge fans of Charlotte, of Ronda Rousey, of Becky Lynch, of Sasha Banks, of Bayley. I get it. They're on TV every week, so you're very familiar with them. But if you got to see some of these other talents in All Elite Wrestling, look them up. Just look up on YouTube. Look up some of their matches. See what they've done. See who they've wrestled. It's incredible. They've got a stacked lineup, and it's almost like they're putting just as much emphasis on their women's division as they are their men's division. Which, coincidentally, I thought it was really telling this week in an interview with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, discussing which WWE talents they may be interested in bringing to the company. A couple names came up. Kevin Owens came up in conversation, John Cena, Seth Rollins, a lot of people, a lot of respect for some of the talents in WWE. I think Omega knows that by going to All Elite Wrestling, he may have closed the door and never getting a chance to work with John Cena and potentially Seth Rollins, but that doesn't change the fact that I think he still would love to have the match. In addition, they still want to do something with the New Day at some point, which is coincidental because this week, after Kofi Kingston got completely ripped off in his championship quest to get to WrestleMania, there was rumblings on Twitter, Big E going on Twitter and giving this whole thing about how, people like them don't get any higher than they already are and they don't get those main event spots. And Xavier Woods saying maybe it's time we quit WWE. I believe firmly that this is all kayfabe. This is all part of the storyline. Get angry, get really frustrated with WWE, leading up to Kofi Kingston somehow this week getting his opportunity to face Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Now, I've seen the debate online. Should Kofi win? Should Kofi lose at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship? I'm telling you, Vince McMahon does weird stuff, and I know that despite the fact that think about this for a moment. Daniel Bryan was so over with the crowd, and Vince would not give him the ball and let him run with it. And when he finally did, he pulled the championship away from him almost as fast as he got it every time he gave it to him. Now he's got Daniel Bryan as his champion, and there's a new guy who's taken on almost the same popularity as the Yes Movement and Daniel Bryan, and that's Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston has pouring water on the fire that was the women's division. Look, let's face it. The Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey thing was hotter than hot. It was the number one thing in the world of professional wrestling. And then this came along, and it's stolen the show. And I really do believe that Kofi not only will get his opportunity, but if I were booking the match, he would absolutely win. In addition, earlier in the evening, and I've said this before, the New Day would win the SmackDown Tag Team Championships at some point throughout the night, and the 3 of them would be standing in the ring at the end of the night, holding up all 3 championship belts. Now, I'm not saying they would close the show. I think at this point, we were kind of booked into a corner. We have to have the women go on last. They've earned that through all the evolution of the women's division for the last couple years. They've earned the opportunity to headline WrestleMania, and we need to give that to them. But at the same time, just see the image in your mind of Kofi on the shoulders of, Big E and Xavier Woods, all 3 of them holding up championships. That would be a moment, one of those historic WrestleMania moments, and it's something I look forward to seeing. Impact Wrestling, they announced their main event for their Impact Rebellion show coming up, a rematch from a few months ago. Johnny Impact will defend the Impact Wrestling Championship against Brian Cage. Look, Brian Cage is about as crafty a wrestler as Impact Wrestling has. He's incredibly over with their fan base. He did so well at Lucha Underground. He's done stuff all over the world, and I really feel like he's ready to be a world champion. Here is what hurts his character. Okay? He's kind of like Braun Strowman. That guy is jacked to the max. He's huge. And that turns him into almost like a monster character. So if you have him win and he takes the world championship, who is going to take down the monster? That's the thing. Now I understand, Johnny Impact kept the title last time, but you can't keep beating somebody that looks like him or you'll make him into a joke. So at some point he needs to win a world championship, but much like Braun Strowman, it just never seems to happen. We'll have to see if it happens at Rebellion now that they are in the main event. Speaking of main events and pay-per-views and big shows, All In 2 has been announced and the location has been revealed. They are going back to Chicago, Illinois, and it should be another stacked show. I think people are extremely excited to see All In 2, and I know I will be one of the people waiting in line to get tickets. I have tickets to Double or Nothing. I still haven't even put online. I got 6 tickets. I think I'm going to auction those bad boys off. But the All In 2 crowd, those tickets are going to go through the roof as well. Can't wait to be a part of that. And they're just doing so much revolutionary stuff. There's actually a stipulation added to AEW Double or Nothing to the tag team match between the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. As we reported last week, the Young Bucks went to Mexico and won the AAA Tag Team Championship. They will be defending those championships officially against the Lucha Brothers at AEW Double or Nothing. So we can look forward to that incredible match. I mean, the first time they got in the ring was kind of like is a throwaway. It wasn't like a half an hour classic match. I expect the one at AEW Double or Nothing to be an incredible tag team match. This first one, I feel like it was done for a reason. It was done on purpose to give the tag team championship to the Young Bucks just so they can lose the championships back to the Lucha Brothers at Double or Nothing to bring more legitimacy to the show. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, but still should be a good time. Former WWE Diva, that's Ashley Massaro, who's been out of the ring since like 2005, is making a return to the wrestling ring. She was on Twitter the other day talking about how she'll be taking some bumps and getting some action in. She's working with an independent company to get ready for some in-ring return. I'm sure she'll have a ton of ring rust, but hopefully things work out well for her. I know she had a really tough time after leaving WWE, worked at some places I won't mention, and really it just never came together for her on the indie scene. Maybe this gives her a new lease on life when it comes to the wrestling business. Good luck to her. I hope she does well. Jim Ross in the news this week. He confirmed that he is in negotiations with All Elite Wrestling, that his contract with WWE doesn't actually run out until March 29th. Well, that's 5 days from now. So I would expect at the end of this coming week that we hear something about Jim Ross signing probably a 5-year deal with All Elite Wrestling. And he cited the number one reason he's leaving WWE as he only was used 2-3 times last year. He was used at the Raw 25th anniversary episode. He was used for the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. You know what I mean? Like, so it's only once in a blue moon, and he still has some good years left in him, and he wants to be active. If you remember, he was doing the New Japan Pro Wrestling stuff. He was commentating there, but then they blocked him. WWE would not let him go back and do more of that. So that you're taking money out of the guy's pockets. And that's at his age, he wants to finish out with the legacy that he started years ago, and he wants to be active. So more power to him. I hope he gets a great contract with All Elite Wrestling and still continues to contribute to the industry. Matt Hardy potentially in line for a new character change. This one along the lines of like a cross between the Broken Matt, the Woken Matt, even a totally different Matt Hardy character, and him being able to ebb and flow and change in and out of characters week to week, even segment to segment within a program. It's a revolutionary idea, one that I think would be hard to pull off, but if anybody could pull it off, I think it would be Matt Hardy. I think he's groomed himself to be ready for this kind of position, and I'm happy WWE looks like they're going to give him a chance to run with this. WWE looking for talent always, and it looks like Garza Jr., an incredible lucha wrestler from Mexico, is headed to WWE, should be reporting in April or early May, along with Shane Strickland, another independent superstar. WWE is just pulling in all this talent, and they need to. One, you got multiple brands to fill. Two, you're expanding your brands and establishing new ones all over the place. NXT UK, NXT Germany's coming soon. I'm sure there's going to be NXT Saudi Arabia or something like that, or India or something of that nature. There'll be NXT in China, NXT South America at some point. And you got to keep bringing in great talent for that. But you also got people getting hurt. Keith Lee, currently out of action due to injury. They haven't announced what the injury is, but he's on the shelf. And it's kind of bad timing. I was actually doing my episode. If you go back into Infro's Corner, my blog, you'll see I booked WrestleMania. I had a segment I called Book It, WrestleMania 35 edition. And when you go in there, I predicted that I would put Keith Lee over as the new NXT champion. That's what I would have done. It wouldn't have been Johnny Gargano or Adam Cole, which, if anybody pays attention to spoilers, it looks like Adam Cole is already being advertised for future shows as the NXT champion. There's one booking that says it's going to be a champion versus champion match, Adam Cole versus the Velveteen Dream, which would imply that the Dream will retain over Matt Riddle and that, Adam Cole will end up walking out with the NXT championship. So, maybe they've ruined that, but Keith Lee is somebody who I think would have been a great ambassador for the NXT brand and a breath of fresh air to the top of that brand. They need something to freshen that up. Gargano and Ciampa have been there for so long, a whole year, and I'm not saying I wanted Ciampa to get hurt. I actually wish he was still champion. I just would like to have seen some fresh matches at the top of the card, and now we're going to be seeing Gargano in the main event again. And I'm not complaining, his work is phenomenal, but I just want to see some variety. It's almost starting to feel like a Raw or SmackDown episode. Moving on, Ring of Honor, Silas Young, who recently re-signed with Ring of Honor back, I want to say October, November, December, somewhere in that time frame, already complaining about Ring of Honor, talking about how he compared it to being in a 6-year marriage, where, and let's face it, he gets to shows and they have nothing for him to do. Biggest show of the year, nothing for him to do. He's getting frustrated. And, this was an opportunity, had he not signed with Ring of Honor, WWE was very much interested in him. He even showed up at a Raw taping, which everybody said was just because he's a fan and he had friends in the area. But can you imagine if he would have just gone to WWE? It would have been one more talent for them, one less for Ring of Honor. And he may actually have been doing something, at least in NXT, that would have been worth something. Instead, Silas Young, who's an incredible talent, is stuck sitting on the sidelines more often than not in Ring of Honor right now. And it's kind of a shame. It's like they brought in some new talents, the PCO, and Brody King and people like that, and they're pushing them to the moon and back. And Silas Young, who's been with the company for several years, is just kind of left on the sidelines. And I don't know. I have a problem with that. I think the guy paid his dues. He established himself as a premium star for them, was a great television champion for Ring of Honor, had some good matches and amazing feuds with people like Jay Lethal. And then this is what you do with him. You leave him sitting on the sideline. Just not cool, not good business. A former Ring of Honor talent, former Impact Wrestling talent, and now going back to Impact Wrestling to work as an agent is Chris Sabin. Sabin blew out his ACL late last year. Still hasn't had surgery on it, but now he's going to be working as an agent for Impact. And what my understanding is Impact is going to bring different people and cycle them through and find the right mix for agents for the company so they can get something better out of the creative forces at Impact Wrestling. We know, we discussed it last week, that Lance Storm's going to be there and working as an agent and a producer. He's actually going to be a special referee at the United We Stand pay-per-view. We'll have to keep our eyes on that for that announcement. Not trying to spoil too much from the Impact Wrestling tapings. That's what they get for taping 3 months worth of shows in 2 nights and expecting us not to talk about it. But definitely toying around with the idea of different agents for Impact Wrestling. It'll be curious to see what they do with that going forward. WWE, right now, the theory is there's between 17 and 19 matches for WrestleMania. It's already scheduled to be the longest WrestleMania in the history of the company. And they're talking about possibly cutting matches to cut down the show. Now, what are you going to cut? The tag team championships? Really? They're supposed to mean something. If they mean anything, they have to be on the biggest show of the year. But that's the problem when you have this much talent. You're going to end up with a 2-day event. They've talked about this before. 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Sunday, 2-day WrestleMania event. Now, of any company, nobody's done a 2-day event since NWA did the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup Tag Team Tournament way back in the 80s. Like 85, 86, 87, 88. I think that was the last year they did it. And it was always 2 days. Your opening day, you had like 64 tag teams. You whittled down several rounds. Then the second day, you had the rest of the tag team tournament, crowned your champions, and then you always finished off with a World Heavyweight Championship match, usually Ric Flair versus somebody for the championship. And it was always a great event. Well, it's almost to the point where WWE needs to make WrestleMania a 2-day event. But then if you do that, what happens to NXT TakeOver? Do you incorporate NXT into WrestleMania? Do you have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event? Oh, wait a minute. Then you're moving the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So you know what I mean? Like WWE, it's a great thing to have this much talent, have this many good things going on. But look, when I'm sitting at home, I could put WrestleMania on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and leave it on until midnight. That's fine, because if I want to leave, I can leave. I can go get a drink, go grab a beer, go do whatever I want to do. But if I'm sitting in a stadium, I don't know if I could sit still for 8, 9, 10 hours of wrestling action. And I love wrestling. I eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling, but I don't know if I could sit in a stadium seat for 8 hours. That's asking a lot of your fans. But it might be what WWE has to do this year. 17 matches for sure, possibly 18, and that's without thinking about The Undertaker, John Cena, Finn Balor, also still not booked for a match. So if you start booking some of those guys, where are we going to go? I mean, think about it. You got the Women's Battle Royal, the Men's Battle Royal. You've got the Intercontinental Championship. You've got the United States Championship, the WWE Championship, the Universal Championship, the Raw Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship. Both tag team divisions. There's too many things. That's without the AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, without the Miz versus Shane McMahon, without the Undertaker if he's there, without Triple H and Batista, without Kurt Angle in his retirement match. You see what I'm saying? The card is monstrous, and that's why they're thinking about cutting it down. I'm actually hoping they leave it, and that it pushes them towards a multi-day event. I think that would be a great idea. Something that kind of surprised me this week is that there's rumors and rumbling all over the internet about Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Are they an item? They've been spotted all over the place shopping together, hanging out together, sitting at a little cafe, sipping some cappuccino together. You have to wonder. Now, Seth Rollins broke up with a longtime girlfriend only a few months ago. Becky Lynch, single for quite a while, apparently. And then she was dating somebody. Now, maybe not. And it looks like the two of them may be an item. No confirmation from either of them yet. But think about that for a minute. The Raw Women's Championship match headliner and the Raw Universal Championship match headliner at WrestleMania are possibly an item. Going to have to keep our eye on that. What a cute couple they'd make, too. I want to talk for just a few minutes about Stevie Ray, one half of the great tag team Harlem Heat. They've been announced to go into the WWE Hall of Fame, and a lot of people are giving some flack for this. Now, here's the thing. You know, you've got people in that Hall of Fame. You guys who've tuned into the podcast over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever it's been, you've heard me complain about certain people who are in the Hall of Fame. Coco Beware, Hillbilly Jim, people like that, who never really amounted to anything sizable in the wrestling industry. You've got them in there, and then you've got people like, Honky Tonk Man going in this year. Longest reigning Intercontinental Champion takes till now to get in, but Coco Beware's in? I don't think Coco Beware ever had a meaningful win in his entire WWE career. He did when he was in other territories. When he was down with Jerry Lawler and with Bill Watts and stuff, he had a few really great matches and good feuds. But that's not WWE. But Coco Beware's in. You know, Hillbilly Jim was in wrestling for a cup of coffee. Sporadically made appearances here and there, but as a full-time active competitor, very limited career. He's in the Hall of Fame. Tori Wilson's going in this year. Never even held a championship. Never. And she's going in the Hall of Fame. But Booker T and Stevie Ray. And here's the thing. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter is the one who is really laying into how Stevie Ray doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what makes me... And I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get off track here. But Dave Meltzer is nothing but an opinion. He's a reporter. His opinion is no more valid or less valid than mine is. We're both diehard wrestling fans. We both know people in the industry. We both have connections within the industry. We both have been dealing with this for our entire lives. Okay? Yes, he's much better known by people. That doesn't make him more knowledgeable than other people. Especially when it comes to something so subjective as the Hall of Fame. And let me be clear. If you're going to put Coco Beware and Hillbilly Jim and people like Pete Rose and Drew Carey into the Hall of Fame, why would you not put a 10-time WCW Tag Team Champion, former member of the NWO, member of Harlem Heat, one of the greatest tag teams in the history of the business, with clear, clean wins over teams like the Outsiders, the Steiner Brothers, the Road Warriors, Sting and Lex Luger. You name it, they went through everybody. The Nasty Boys, the Dungeon of Doom, everybody that WCW had to throw at the tag team division, Booker T and Stevie Ray went through. Stevie Ray was every bit a part of that as anybody else was. So I'm so tired of hearing people say that he doesn't belong in there. Look, I am the first person to jump all over WWE when they put somebody in who doesn't belong there. Like, Coco Beware, Hillbilly Jim. I keep saying the same two. There's actually others that are in the Hall of Fame. Those are just the two that annoy me the most. But then you're going to give Stevie Ray a hard time. Get off it. Stevie Ray, congratulations on your induction into the Hall of Fame. You are an amazing talent, one of the most innovative tag teams in the history of the business, and you paved the way for tag teams of color to really find their way in the business. Where would teams like, the Nation of Domination be if Booker T and Stevie Ray didn't pave the way? Where would other tag teams have been if you didn't pave the way? Right now, you guys know who listen to the podcast all the time, I'm huge on independent wrestling. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my favorite acts on the indie scene, the Gunnas. Okay, Ty Reno and King Blackie wrestle on the independent scene. They wrestle for CZW and a host of other independent shows all up and down the East Coast, and they've won tag team championships all over the place. They are heavily influenced by Harlem Heat. How could you not give them their due and let them go into the Hall of Fame? Absolutely ridiculous. They absolutely belong there. So the last thing I want to do for this episode, which I find humorous because we just talked about Sting last week, is today is the birthday of The Undertaker. Happy 54th birthday to Mark Calloway, a.k.a. Mark Callis, a.k.a. The Undertaker, the dead man. You know, at 54 years old, you would think that somebody be looking forward to winding their career down and getting out of the business. But since we know you're coming to the next Saudi Arabia show, and let's face it, you belong at WrestleMania, we're not ready to see you ride off into the sunset. And 54 hopefully is a young 54, and we could see you in the ring again very, very soon. If WWE does the right thing, hopefully with Finn Balor. That's what I'd be pulling for. That's all the time we have for you in this episode. Make sure you check in with us for the next episode. We'll run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce any sound and music we use in our shows. Today's podcast, as always, sponsored by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, don't wait. Don't hesitate. Go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking a few moments with us this evening. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsj101sports.com for their articles on the world of wrestling. Go to my blog, In Fro's Corner. Check out my new article put up yesterday about WrestleMania's main events. And if you are into the independent wrestling scene, check out our Indie Events tab for a show coming to you. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.